Lastly, Frank, we have to talk about a news story that I know hit close to your heart here because, well, for one, you texted me the story, but I had already seen this. I'm going to let you set this up, Frank. I mean, the headline is basically big changes to USADA's UFC anti-doping policy, but everybody knows that this basically cost you 2 years of your career. So what is your understanding of what is changing about the policy?
I think that basically the USADA's testing policies in their labs were catching a lot of guys that were just taking either supplements that were tainted or being exposed to things because, I mean, they were basically, in their own words, finding, a needle in a haystack. So guys were failing tests and being put on the sideline for metabolites or trace elements of a drug that necessarily wasn't enhancing performance, and it probably wasn't taken intentionally if you have that small of amounts in your body.
Yeah.
So here you have guys being sidelined for years, being financially, repercussions, and then in the end finding out that, like, well, they weren't a cheater, you just were a collateral damage. And so I'm very happy that now the USADA has figured out what I figured out 2 years ago. It saddens me in one way that I have no college degree and I had more common sense than they did. But I guess common sense and college degrees not necessarily in the same. Now that they find out that certain drugs, like for example the metabolite they found in my system at the levels it was found at, I never would have been suspended. They would have been probably pulled me to the side, some extra testing to make sure that obviously being exposed to something that could potentially be harmful to my system, but I wouldn't have lost 2 years of my career. Jones, same thing. He wouldn't have lost, the 15 months that he lost of his career. And certain athletes out there, that they're finding out that, like Tom Lawler wouldn't have lost, time out of his career and left the promotion. So, it's bittersweet in one sense where you sit there and go, man, this thing I got screwed over on, they fixed it.
Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't have been, if this would have happened tomorrow, or this would have happened tomorrow, I wouldn't have had the same repercussions that occurred, back in 2016. I'm happy now that no other young athletes have to go through what I went through, being branded a cheater and all these, and losing money and not be able to provide for your family. These are, I don't wish that on anybody, especially when you really didn't do anything, which is what USADA is saying now. At these levels and these amounts for these certain drugs, no longer are you guilty, and they realize you're not necessarily a cheater. There's just that their testing parameters are so detailed or so exact that they can find things in your system that that you could have had in your system for years or whatnot, pulsing or just different explanations, laboratories that they come up with. It actually brings me hope because I honestly felt that I would never have gone back to the UFC because just like how John Jones had this pulsing phenomenon with the same metabolite I had in my system. I didn't want to deal with it. I couldn't, and that's actually why I left the UFC the first time I asked for my release, is because it wasn't a case of I don't want to stop taking what you guys have caught me on. It was I never took it in the first place. I don't know how to explain it's here. So you guys don't seem to care to help me out. You're not in your own words. You're not in the business of helping me. You're in the business of testing athletes. And so I would have been suspended the next time for 4 years, and then, not fight for 4 years at that time. Now I'm in my mid 40s, and so that's why I had to have my release. So knowing that is that, now I know that when, my contract's up with Bellator, now the option of possibly going back is back on the table, which makes Mrs. Mir happy. She's always wanted me to finish my career in the UFC, but up until this moment, I never would have been able to go back. And now knowing that, okay, whatever you guys realize, the error of your mistakes, that we can, possibly have a redemption.
It's one of those things of just the sheer bad luck of being active at a certain point in time, where it's kind of like, Well, almost like how people think. Like, this is a weird analogy, but like, think about how people think about the Vietnam War now. No one thinks that was a good idea, but at one time there was a debate about it. Oh. At one time there was like, and
it was a police action, sir.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, you just you have the misfortune of being. If this had happened to you what? How many? 3-4 years later?
Yeah.
3 years later, however long it's been.
I would have been nothing more
That's
than
not
like, hey,
much-
by the way.
That's not much time. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just a. And I'm not trying to bum you out. I'm just saying that.
I'm like, I've been trying to get over this,
Yeah.
dude.
no, but I'm just saying. When you, yeah.
I've had 24 hours to sit on this before we talked
You're
about
a real
it.
shitty therapist.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
This is the way I look at it.
Yeah.
It would be like, I mean, throughout all of time, we're constantly trying to come up with better laws and regulation. Could you imagine if all of a sudden it was like, well, if when women's suffrage came along and a woman going, well, that's screwed up. I didn't get to vote. Now my daughter gets to vote. How unfair. It's like,
right.
You're right. It
Yeah.
sucked for you, but
Yeah.
you don't want the next generation to have it better. So in one sense, like I saw someone make an argument for that, about college tuitions. If Bernie Sanders, fixing the college tuition.
Yeah. Why didn't I get free state?
That's well, I paid my
Yeah,
shit off. Well,
yeah.
guess what? So now, I guess now when I
Yeah.
give my opinion on that, I'm in the same boat. No one's going to go back and pay me for the 2 years that I lost of my career. USADA didn't send me a sorry letter going, hey, by the way, I know we screwed up.
Yeah.
I mean, I can read between the lines and go, okay, you guys know you fucked up.
Yeah. They didn't send you the "it wasn't you, it was us" card from Hallmark.
So I mean, I can take credit in that, or
Yeah.
take solace in the fact that, like, well, they're fixing it.
Yeah.
But and hopefully other guys, my own daughter now, as her career goes on, is not going to have to deal with some of the situations. Their system's improving.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks that I got caught under the train tracks. I got ran over by it, but hey, I survived. I could keep on fighting. Did things get hard? Yeah, I lost a house over it. You know what I mean? Like, bills were hard to pay
Good
for
news
2
is
years.
you had another one.
Yeah, multiple homes. Just backtrap a little bit. Now look, I'm on the up and up again, and hopefully next year buy another house again. So
Yeah. All right. Well, it's an important development in the UFC's revision of their USADA policy, but obviously that's one that hits close to home for us. So we definitely wanted to talk about that.